Hello everybody and welcome back to another monthly reading wrap-up video. This one is very exciting because September is like the second month I was technically out of my reading slump, but the first full month that I was. August for like the last 3 weeks I was out of my reading slump, but dude, the amount of reading that I did in September is actually insane. But before we talk about all the wonderful little books that I read, of course, we are going to start with the statistics side of things. If you don't know me, I'm a statistics girly. I love knowing all of the little nitty gritty about what my reading is like. So I'm going to tell you about it. I hope that's okay. Starting off with the books overall, in total I read 15 books. Only one of those books was on my seasonal TBR, and only one of those books was on my yearly TBR. Moving on to the format that I read the books in, 4 of them I read as physical books from the library, 4 of them I read on my Kindle, 2 of the books were my own physical copies, and I listened to 5 audiobooks this month. But moving on, let's talk about ratings. In the month of September, I gave out 1 DNF, 2 2-stars, 1 2.5, 2 3-stars, 3 3.5, 5 4-stars, and 1 5-star. That means that in September, I had an average of 3.2 stars per book. And then the final little section that I like to talk about is the pages that I read this month. The shortest book that I read was 76 pages, and the longest book that I read was 529 pages. In total, I read a whopping 4,786 pages this month, and that averages out to about 319 pages per book. But with all the crazy numbers aside, because honestly, to me they are bonkers crazy insane, let's start talking about the books in general. Now, even though I read 15 books this month, I only have physical copies on me of 8 of those books, so you're gonna have to bear with me and the photos that I'm going to put up because that is all that I have to show you most of these books. With that being said, the first book that I read this month was Bloodshed by Molly Doyle. I read the first novella back in August called Scream for Us, and I was completely obsessed with this from the get-go. This is a dark romance. It is very much a dark romance, but I just oh, it's so good. I went into it thinking that the series was completed, and it's not, which was very upsetting for me because now I have to wait for book 2 to come out, but I thoroughly enjoyed myself reading Bloodshed. The series follows 3 guys as they protect one girl, and there's like a whole big plot with them being part of like a cult type thing. I think. I don't know. We don't have a whole lot of background information on it yet, but it's so, I love it. I ended up giving Bloodshed a 3 out of 5 stars. I would recommend it if you're a dark romance reader, but please keep in mind that it is a dark romance, and I mean that quite literally. Like, it is a dark romance. It is dark romance, not a fluffy one. Okay. After reading Bloodshed, I picked up Melt for Us by Molly Doyle. This is the second novella in the Bloodshed series, and it was okay. I ended up giving it a 2.5 out of 5 stars, and that's just because one of the scenes and like the main plot points of the novella, it wasn't for me. I knew that I was reading a dark romance. I knew I was going into a dark romance. I knew the content that would be in there, but I didn't expect this one part of it to be in there, and that threw me and just kind of like, maybe not, no. Because even I, as a dark romance reader, have my limits, and that book reached my limit. My limit was met. But after reading those 2 on my Kindle, I finally went to my first physical book of the month, which is going to be Mark of the Plague by Kevin Sands. For those of you who don't know, I have talked about the series a lot recently. This is my childhood version of Percy Jackson, as in this is what I was obsessed with as a kid. And this is the longest series that I have still sitting on my 2024 TBR. 2024 is almost over, so gotta get reading. But this year I wanted to sit down and tab these books, which is what I did with Mark of the Plague. I am not somebody who rereads books. However, the first 3 books in the series I have reread at least 4 or 5 times. I've never actually finished the 4th book, which is going to be really interesting as we creep up on that part of the series, but Mark of the Plague, absolutely beautiful, wonderful book, 5 out of 5 stars. Plot-wise, we follow an apothecary who is around 12 years old, who goes around and solves mysteries. And in this one, he is solving the mystery of the bubonic plague, which, is huge because it's 1600 in England and everybody's dying. But plot aside, very good book. Like I said, 5 out of 5 stars. Highly recommend this series. The next book that I picked up was Wings Once Cursed and Bound by Piper L. Drake. This is a book that I started reading it before my book slump, and I decided to pick it back up after from my library. I picked it up for a second time. This is the library's copy. Because I was so enthralled by the beginning of this, and I wanted to continue reading it, and just, I needed to know what happened. I did end up finishing this one as an audiobook just because that's what my brain was processing at the time, and while I fully comprehended it and fully was into the story, I did not like it that much. I think this book is actually part of a series, but I will not be picking up the rest of the series because this did not hold my grip well enough to continue moving forward with it. Long story short, it's a fantasy. She discovers that she's one of these mythical creatures, and then they go on this quest to learn about A, what mythical creature she is, and B, to get these shoes that are stuck on her off. The shoes part is what I was excited for. The rest of it didn't really know I was getting into that. I probably could have figured that out if I just read the back of the book. Yeah, should have read the back of the book. But Wings Once Cursed and Bound is not for me, so it got a 2 out of 5 stars in my little rating tier. The next book that I picked up is actually a book that I buddy read with a couple of my friends, and that is going to be Snowed In with a Demon by L.E. Eldridge. When I told a couple of my friends that I was getting really back into reading again, we decided to start a book club, and guys, it has been so much fun reading with them. Like, please start a book club with your friends if y'all read. That aside, I really don't know what I wanted from Snowed In with a Demon. However, I don't think I'm upset with it, you know? This is once again a book that I read on my Kindle, and normally short books that I read on my Kindle are like those one-off romances where it's literally just the characters, you know, focused on the physical aspect of their relationship. However, Snowed In had a really cute aspect where he focused on things outside of that, which I came to enjoy. I didn't know that's what it was going to be going into it, so going into it I was a little bit bored in the beginning of the book, but I did end up really liking it after I got over the fact that, you know, this 150-page book was more about the characters' emotional feelings rather than their physical involvement. Once again, I need to learn how to read backs of books. It's a crazy concept that hopefully one day I will learn how to grasp. But after finishing Snowed In, I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars, which is actually really funny because I gave it 3 out of 5, one of my friends DNF'd it, and the other one of my friends gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I am quite literally the person right in the middle. The book that I read after that was The Madness Obsession by Danielle Lori. This is the second book in a series. I cannot remember what the series is called, but the first one is called The Sweetest Oblivion. That is the first ever book that I read on my Kindle back in 2023, and I just have not been waiting, but oh my gosh, been needing to finish the series, and I still need to finish it. The Madness Obsession was really, really sweet. I cannot remember the characters' names, however, it is a dark romance, but it's nowhere near as dark as the stuff that I read now. Like, looking back at it, this dark romance, it's a mafia romance, you know, so it's not like super in there, but there's some aspects of it where I'm like, oh, you know? I was apparently in a dark romance mood because there's a couple of dark romances on here, as you can see. But I really did enjoy The Madness Obsession. I know that the main guy character is this FBI agent gone bad, so he's like supposed to be good, but he's actually evil and works for the mafia. And then our female main character has been in like multiple marriages before, but always marries old men because she knows that they're going to die, and she can either A, get their money, or B, just be left alone. Like, she doesn't want a husband, you know? Like, it's lovely. I love it. And they meet, and their chemistry is, oh my god, it's perfect, you guys. Their banter is something that I like fully enjoyed and fully I was in there. I loved it, which I think is mostly what led to this book being a 4 out of 5 stars. Because looking back at it, the plot isn't like out of this world crazy insane, you know, but I really did enjoy the characters, and I enjoyed their chemistry, and I enjoyed the romance aspect of it, which is what I was looking to get out of the book. So for me, The Madness Obsession by Danielle Lori got a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I picked up is single-handedly one of my biggest reading obsessions right now, and that's going to be Heartstopper. I have made multiple TikToks, multiple posts, and multiple YouTube videos on this series. Oh my gosh. I talked about this a little bit in my Heartstopper vlog, but when I first got back into reading, I was convinced that I would never read Heartstopper because it was so overly loved. But that doesn't mean it's a bad book, okay? The Heartstopper series might be the first series or book that I have picked up from BookTok, period, that I have actually decently liked. Okay, sorry, brief intermission. My microphone literally died mid-sentence. But as I was saying, I really do love Heartstopper. It is a beautiful, beautiful story that had me giggling, kicking my feet, and just totally enjoying the romance. I don't know if I said this before, my microphone killed itself, but I gave Heartstopper a 4 out of 5 stars, which is the same rating that I gave the next book, which is Heartstopper Volume 2. Guys, I loved this so much that I had to read at least the first 2 volumes back to back. And after reading the first 2 volumes, I actually went and watched the first season of Heartstopper on Netflix, and I do have to say that I love how in the TV show we get to learn more about the side characters than we do in the graphic novels. Now, obviously that doesn't mean I didn't enjoy the graphic novels, seeing as they are both rated 4 stars. But just, you know, I love learning about the side characters too, and I love that we learn more about the side characters in future graphic novels as well. But everything that I said about Heartstopper Volume 1 reigns true for Heartstopper Volume 2. I love the chemistry, I love the characters, and I ate it up. I really did. After reading Heartstopper, I was looking for an audiobook on the Libby app through my library that would allow me to listen to it while I was crocheting, and what I ended up stumbling across was The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. Previous to picking this up from my library, I heard about it a little bit from a couple of booktubers like Sarah and Destiny, and I wasn't sure if I was going to pick it up just based off of the ratings, you know, like I was like, maybe. But I ended up picking it up, and I ended up actually really enjoying it. I gave The Prison Healer 3.5 out of 5 stars, because like I said, I really did enjoy it. I love the characters, I think they're so sweet, but this book is so freaking repetitive. Obviously, she's stuck in a prison, so there's not like a whole lot you can do in there. However, it's just, ooh, my gosh. I am really glad that I picked up the book though, because I did actually end up finishing the series, and guys, it is a beautiful series. We'll talk about it later, but it is like a beautiful, beautiful series. But yeah, like I said, I gave The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I picked up was actually also an audiobook, but this one I sped read. I picked up Red Dragon by Thomas Harris, which is actually a really old like mystery thriller type book, and to be so real with you, did not love it. Didn't love it. I ended up giving it a 2 out of 5 stars. I read this one because it's the first one in the Hannibal Lecter series, and for the second book club book that me and my friends are doing, we decided to pick up The Silence of the Lambs, which is the second book in the Hannibal Lecter series. And while my friends were totally okay with just diving into the second book because they're all like not in the same series but like in the same realm, you know what I'm saying? Like the books all take place in the same world but they're not the same characters. They were cool with diving into book 2. I was not. To say that they were disappointed in me for reading the first book first is a little bit of an understatement. They were both like, why? Literally why. But hey, I did it and I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. I do not think that I am the target audience for Thomas Harris. However, it was enjoyable and I didn't DNF it, so I feel like that says a lot. But after reading 2 quite big novels, I had to go back to my comfort zone, which was Heartstopper Volume 3. Now this copy of Heartstopper is actually so freaking heavy, so I'm gonna put it down, but y'all can look at the pretty picture on the screen. Going into Heartstopper Volume 3, I was so excited to be seeing the main characters again and seeing their little love story. And in addition to that, in Heartstopper Volume 3, we get to see so much more about the side characters, which I was so excited for. We even got to follow the teachers as they fell in love. Little mini spoiler, but it's fine because I was freaking out over it. I love the continuation of Heartstopper. I think that it's beautiful, but I think that if you're going to read Heartstopper, you should know that when you hit book 3, there's kind of a little bit of like a topic shift. For me personally, I felt like books 1 and 2 revolved a lot around Nick and Charlie and the gay community and issues revolving that. But the second that we step into book 3, we actually talk about eating disorders. And while it's not the overall topic of the book, it definitely changed a little bit of how I perceived the book and what I like grasped from it, you know? Like to me, it was a really relevant topic and kind of drove our story as we moved through it. Because of that, I ended up giving Heartstopper Volume 3 a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It wasn't because I disliked it and it wasn't because I didn't love the characters. I still really did. It just had a heavier topic that I was not mentally or emotionally prepared for. Nonetheless, after reading Heartstopper Volume 3, I went straight on to read Heartstopper Volume 4. And if I said that Heartstopper Volume 3 had a lot to deal with different issues, boy oh boy does this one as well. This book in its entirety revolves around Charlie and his mental health. It also revolves around the relationships that Charlie has and how he navigated through all of it while also navigating mental health. I think this volume of Heartstopper is really so important to me as someone who struggles with mental health and is part of the whole yay mental health community. My girl Alice Oserman did a great job about talking about what it feels like to have anxiety and have depression, have OCD, and have an eating disorder. I think all those are talked about in here. I might be wrong about that, but she really does a great job at breaking down mental illnesses and how it feels to have these things and cope with these things. And going into book 4, I was completely prepared to have those conversations and think those thoughts and see those words. So Heartstopper Volume 4 got a 4 out of 5 stars from me. While it still focuses on Nick and Charlie, it also focuses a lot on mental health, and I appreciated it. I did. I think the world needed this book, even if I and the world wasn't prepared for it. Okay, dude, I feel like I just ran a book marathon, but we still have a couple books to talk about, so let's go to the next book. And that book is going to be, drumroll please, One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. Or Gillig, or Jillig, or Jilg. I don't know how to say her last name. It's a very aesthetic last name. I'm just not sure how it's supposed to come out of my mouth. Nonetheless, even though I'm in the middle of 18 million bajillion series, I decided to pick up a duology, which I still haven't finished. Sorry, pushing my series issue into a video where it doesn't need to be, but I did pick up the One Dark Window. Let's talk about it. This duology is actually one that I had my mom read earlier this year. I said, oh, you'll probably like it. You know, it's a little bit of fantasy. It's not a whole lot of fantasy. I think you'll really enjoy it. And she did. She gave both of the books 5 stars. And then I read One Dark Window and I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I really did enjoy this book. I like the magic in this book, although it took me a little bit to grasp. I like the characters, although it took me a little bit to grasp all of their names and who they all were. And I like the plot, even though it took me a little bit to grasp. Overall, arching theme of this book is that I might be too dumb for it. Or not too dumb, but just too slow. I believe this is actually her debut novel, which is kind of insane to right off the bat have a super popular book, which kudos to you, girl. Couldn't be me. But I definitely see just a couple little things in here that I think would probably have been tweaked if this was like her 3rd or 4th novel. I feel like the magic system wasn't explained very well. I did not understand the importance of the cards until we were like 50% of the way through the book. There's also so many freaking characters that I could not keep them straight for the life of me until like 75% of the way through the book. Please, if you're gonna make there be more than 6 characters that I have to keep track of on a chapter to chapter basis, put one of those little like family tree something or somethings in the back that tells me about all the characters, okay? Because I was struggling. I'm used to like maybe 4 main characters tops. This struggle for me. There was like 8 of them, dude. 8 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No, there's like 15. Guys, there's so many characters here and it kind of stresses me out. And then the plot. I actually really like the plot. I think the plot is really good. However, when we reach the part about I think like 80% of the way through the book, where we're at the market, during the market scene, that confused the crap out of me. I don't know if it's because there's so many characters. I don't know if it's because I was reading it at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I don't know if it's because I just didn't really, like the words went in, but they didn't do anything before they went out, you get what I'm saying? I don't know what it was, but that part confused me so much, to the point where for the next couple of chapters, I was just kind of floating in the ocean. I'm like, okay, what are we doing? I'm confused. So for me, the ending of the book was a little bit odd because I didn't totally understand what had happened in previous chapters, but I got it enough. You know, I was there. I reached the finish line, but I was like maybe 6th, 7th place, but I was there. But yes, like I said, One Dark Window by Rachel Gilligan something got a 3.5 out of 5 stars from me. The next book that I finished is one that I'm very excited to talk about, and that is going to be The Gilded Cage by Lynette Noni. When I say that this series is going to be one of my favorite series of 2024, I mean that. I don't think I talked about this when we talked about The Prison Healer, but everybody talks about the ending of book 1. And while I get it, the ending of book 2 also goes absolutely insane. I listened to the entire trilogy as audiobooks, so for me, I was sitting there like this, rewinding and sitting there like this again, and rewinding and sitting there like at least 3 times for each of the endings, okay? Especially book 1. I had to listen to that letter another time because, girl, excuse me? Did I see any of it coming? No. Was I paying attention enough to see it coming? No. When I listen to audiobooks as I crochet, they genuinely serve the same purpose for me as a TV show would. It is genuinely just background noise. And for this series, I was 100% gripped. I was 100% paying attention, and I know that because I kept wanting to listen to my book. And I know that's important because the book I'm listening to as an audiobook right now does not give me the same feeling as this trilogy did. The Gilded Cage is a continuation of what happened in book 1. However, it is a completely new scene with more characters added in to the main characters that we already knew. However, in this trilogy, it was easier for me to keep track of those characters because we were introduced to all like 12 of them at the same time. Plus, I love how the author would keep bringing up that this person was this person's brother or sister, or this is how they're related, or they put cousin in there a lot. Like, that really helped me to like solidify how the tree of friendship and family worked. But I love The Gilded Cage. I really cannot talk about it because it will spoil literally everything for book 1. But I really, guys, read the trilogy, please. I ended up giving The Gilded Cage a 4 out of 5 stars, which is just, I loved it. Loved it. Especially the romance. I haven't talked about the romance at all. The romance, oh, you guys, you will love the romance in this book. I love the romance in this book. It is so drama filled, and they are both divas, but it's beautiful. Absolutely stunning. But with that, we are already on to our final book of the month, which is going to be I'll Stop the World by Lauren Thomas. I did not say her name right at all. It is Lauren Tommen. Crazy. This book has a really interesting premise of there being a mystery that they are solving while also doing time travel, which I was very excited for. However, I read the first 115-ish pages of this novel. I got to the point where the time traveling had happened, and I could not care less. I genuinely could not care less. In this book, we switch between at least 4 or 5 perspectives, and in every single perspective, I was pissed off with the character. I didn't like any of them, and I didn't care about their storylines or their lives enough to feel super invested in it. So this ended up getting a DNF from me. As you can see, I got like a decent amount into the book, but I just couldn't do it. Like, could not be bothered to go on, even as I was listening to this as an audiobook. Like, I didn't care. So even though I had an absolutely fantastic reading month, I ended up leaving the month with a DNF. But that's okay, because at least I didn't have to read about something that I didn't want to read about. But with that, that is every single book that I read in the month of September, which is just, it's crazy. And I'm actually just realizing, I don't think I showed you guys how big this physical stack is, even though it's not every single book that I've read. Because normally I show you guys at the beginning, but I didn't this time. So allow me to introduce you to my September 2024 reading stack. This is actually really heavy because a lot of these books are heavy though, so I'm gonna put that back down. Nonetheless, I had an absolutely phenomenal, fantastic reading month of September, and I hope that you guys did as well. I have already started reading in October, and I am so excited for my October reads as well. Like, I genuinely feel like after this book slump, I could conquer the world. Genuinely could. I'm saying the same thing multiple times, but I think it just really sticks home how I feel, you know? Like, I love reading again, and it makes me so happy, obviously, and I'm very excited to continue doing it in October. I am curious to see if I'll read more books in October than I did in September. I don't know. We'll see. Nonetheless, thank you guys so much for wrapping up September with me. I had a whole bunch of fun in my September reading, and I hope that you did too. If you have any book recommendations for me, don't be afraid to let me know. I love hearing about the books that you guys love and seeing if I love them as well. But with that, you guys have an absolutely wonderful week, and I will see you next Wednesday for our next reading adventure. Cheers!